Well, we're talking with my friend James Shoshone here at Shoofly, and we talked earlier about where he kind of grew up and how he kind of came to this country. But I'd like to hear you talk now, James, about kind of your influence of the Buckaroo lifestyle and some of the hands you worked around, some of the ranches you worked on, and what actually kind of developed. You know, we talked earlier about kind of how you got started as a younger guy, but so maybe to start with, who's some of the people that influenced you and kind of got your attention and gave you some motivation, mentors, whatever?
I guess going back to McDermott Reservation, when I was there, there was a man by the name of Clifford Northrup, and he was an older man, maybe in his 70s, and he wanted to show me how to ride colts, and he showed me how to ride colts like 2-year-olds, and it was kind of like the old style, you know, you haltered them and hobbled them and saddled them and sidelined them or whatever and rubbed them and did like that, and then by, you know, you got on them and whatever they did, you know, it's kind of like that, you know. And then I told him I want to learn how to use a hackamore, and he said, oh, that's all we used when we were kids, was a hackamore. And he said my grandpa used to lead us out into the middle of a field, and that's, you know, he'd let us go, and he said he would ride off and leave us there on our colt, middle of nowheres. He said you either get bucked off or they'd run off or whatever. Some of them, they didn't do anything, he said. So anyway, I always remember that old man. I'd have to say that's where I got my start with the colts, and I wish I would have learned different though, you know. Now in hindsight's 2020, but you know, like listening to you, how you are with when your grandkids were riding those colts last year. I really enjoyed that. I was like, man, I did not know you didn't have to rush through things. I did not know you could wait, you know. it was let's get it done, let's do this right now. And it was, and usually it just caused a wreck, you know, caused trouble for yourself or your horse, and that's no way to be. So but then I have a friend there again, his name was Frank Dick, and watching him with a rope was just really something. You know, you're, like I said, you're really watching something really nice, but watching him with the colt was just the same way, you know. And Frank exposed me to the Buckaroo style, but not only the style, but the lingo too, you know, the English reservation lingo that went with buckarooing, you know. And you know, he had the tapaderos, the 30-inch tapaderos, and you know, big, you're always riding a snaffle bit colt, and you know, making that horse look so good. And he said, this is what this is for, this is how you do this. And he'd always make his horses jump, you know, move out real fast, and you know, roping them, grab their legs with his rope, and you know, getting them gentle, getting them sacked out, and all off of the top of that horse, and just watching him move and do things. And I said, man, Frank, how you do that? You know, he could make the worst bronc look like just like a gentle bridle horse, you know. But he just had a way with them, and usually he didn't talk too much. You know, he didn't say, oh, this is what I do, or this is how I do it. So Frank, and then I mean, there's multiple cowboys there on the reservation that I could name, but as I came to Hawaii, you know, I got around like Spider Teller. He was really big influence on me. Like I said, I got the privilege to work with Woody at the IL, but I got to go to the YP and work with Nathan Kelly and Norbert Gibson, Ramon Cordova, you know, the whole crew, Tub Blanthorn, you know. I think most of them were native, you know. And then you had Manuel Palomino, he was there, that was Ramon's uncle. There's 2 Mexicans. But man, them guys could rope, Ramon and Manuel. You know, it was beautiful. Manuel used to use a little brass horn, looked like a little kid saddle too. And man, that guy used this 20-foot loop, and he'd throw it, float it out there, and he'd catch a cow, and he'd put about 10 dollies on that, and he'd just pull it straight up and stop. And I never seen nothing like that. That was pretty cool, you know. Used to the mule hide and post horns, and but as far as like horsemen, I mean, it's being around Jake Brown, watching Frank and TJ.
How much was you around Spider? I know I was around Spider some, and he was around Melvin Jones and Frank Arcularis. I mean, he kind of sought out horsemen that I'm familiar with that were top horsemen in Nevada. And Spider seemed to me like he reached out more than anybody I know that I was familiar with on the res. He kind of wanted a better bridle horse. He didn't want to just lead him out in the middle of the field and get on him. And
he wanted a good horse, and he loved horses. That guy.
Yeah.
I didn't really get around Spider like until he moved to where my mom's from, down in Gardnerville. He married down there for 20 years, and and then I was married in Fallon, and he used to, come on, James, come over and ride colts with me, or come over ride horses. I got to do this, got to do that, and so I'd go over and visit with him, and try this colt out, and in my mind, so what messed me up was when they say a snaffle bit colt, I thought that was a horse that was unbroken. I didn't know that they could be real good in a snaffle bit. Almost like when I was at the IL, they were like bridle horses. They were good. And I think you started a lot of them horses, I think, to my understanding.
Yeah, I started quite a few for the IL for a period of time there. Yeah, Spider, I was about 14, and he gave me an old pair of G.S. Garcia spurs at the rodeo in Hawaii. He was sitting around there visiting. He said, I got a pair of spurs I want you to have. Yeah, okay. Told me what they were, and I go, hell yeah. And we went out to his house and got them, and he gave them to me. I still have them.
Yep, I've seen those. I know you're very proud of those, and I know that Spider is very proud of you, and I know that he talked about your horsemanship and how you came a long ways, and he saw that, and he appreciated that. So, and
well, he worked for Melvin Jones for I don't know how long, but off and on multiple times. I know because I heard Melvin talk about him too. And,
that's there in Carlin, right?
Yeah. Melvin was kind of one of my mentors, and a lot of people. But yeah, I know Spider. He kind of cherished that time with Melvin. I know.
I never got to meet the Jones brothers or Melvin or the other ones, but I know he worked for a guy named Arcularis.
Yeah.
Down there in Tonopah, and Spider used to always talk about that man, and Frank Arcularis, his name was.
Yep.
And he would talk about them Indians too, coming, like there was a man named Lum Hooper, I know you know who he is.
Lum worked for me quite a while, he's good friends.
And I guess they were working there because him and Spider are really close. And then there's Shoshone, and they speak Indian, And there was some Paiute boys from McDermott that were working. As a matter of fact, one of them was Frank Dick's dad. His name was Nathan. And I heard he was really good with the hackamore. But anyhow, I didn't know him. He had passed away. But I guess Lum and Spider showed up, and them boys were there, and I guess they run them off the ranch. That's how they were. They were kind of aggressive cowboys. But anyway, neither here nor there. That's just a story that Spider told me. Frank
had a really cool ranch. His wintered on the desert and summered in the mountains. They never got on a truck. He had a stock truck, but they didn't use it very much. That's before goosenecks. When I was 18, I was looking for a job in Nevada, and a lot of these same people told me, go down and talk to Frank Arcularis, that's a good outfit. I went down there and talked to him. I spent 2 or 3 days, hung out with him, and he opened up these trunks of these cool old bridles and blind Bob McCarty's and Ortega rawhide stuff. He had quite a collection. I'm just thinking, this is cool. And I knew him by reputation and everything as a good cowman and a good cowboy and a good horseman and everything. And I thought, God, I don't want to go anywhere else. This would be a really cool place to work. And after about 2 or 3 days, whatever it was, he says, kid, I know we'd get along. I think you'd like being here, and I'd like having you in here. But he says, I'm selling the outfit, and I don't think you'd want to work for the new owner. So you best just find a job somewhere else. And that's what happened. But I come that close to having a job with Frank. And
wow. Well, I know Spider, he talked highly of Frank Arcularis, and at later years when Frank ended up in the old people's home there in Gardnerville, Spider went and visited him, and anyway, he told him, he says, "Hey kid, when are we going to go after them Mustangs up there on that mountain?" And he told him, "We'll go after them, Frank, tomorrow." He said, "We'll go after them." And I guess he had already gone, getting old, but I wish I could have met him. I wish I could have seen that stuff what you're talking about. I just like seeing it.
Frank was a fair-sized guy, probably all of 6 foot, the way I remember him, maybe a little over, and a pretty stout guy, maybe over 200 pounds. I don't know, it's been a long time. But Willis Packer, he had a ranch in Tuscarora and hired a lot of people and went through a lot of people. He had trouble keeping help. And so Frank Arcularis was in the commercial in Elko at the bar, and Willis come up, and Frank, I think, would have been just a little bit younger, not too much younger than Willis. So he says, "Hey, young man, can I buy you a drink?" And Frank says, "Yeah." So he bought him a drink, and he says, "Well, young man, do you know how to pitch hay?" And Frank says, "Yeah, I can pitch hay." And Frank says, or Willis says, "Well, I'd like to hire you. Would you come to work for me?" And Frank says, "Well, I've heard of you. I might like coming to work for you, but I got a ranch of my own I got to take care of." Willis tried to hire Frank.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Old Midnight Willie, he was a classic.
Yeah.
When I was at the IL, I went into TC, Taylor Canyon, and I'm sitting there, and there's old Midnight Willie sitting there, and he's having his 7.7. He likes those 7.7s. And he says, "Hey, young man," he said, "are you a buckaroo?" I said, "Well, I work at the IL." He goes, "Why don't you just quit there and come and work for me?" He said, "You're not going to learn nothing over there," he told me. I never forgot that,
There's a lot of stories on Willis. I worked at Stampede, which is out on the 25, for a couple of summers, couple of years.
Yeah.
And so he is my neighbor. Oh my God, some of the stuff that we done. They could write a book on that guy.
They need to.
He was out on a horse, pretty tough horse one time. This wasn't too long before I was there. And he got off to open the gate, and I don't know, he couldn't lead his horse through the gate, or somehow he got in a fight with his horse, and the horse struck him and broke his leg. And the horse was still trying to attack him, and he got underneath the brace post of the gate to get away from him. Finally, the horse left. So here he is out however far with a broken leg. Nobody knows where he is. He's alone. And so he crawled on his hands and knees to the county road, which was, I don't know, a mile or 2 or 3, and laid on the county road, and Stanley Ellison come along and found him.
Oh, wow.
And hauled him to town. He's tougher than hell.
Wow.
But them guys didn't have a choice. They had to be tough.
Yeah, that's true. That's the truth. Yeah, as far as people influencing me, though, I mean, just hearing stories about them guys like Midnight Willie and, Moppin, he had his stories, he talked about different people that come through there, or even the cowboys that worked for him in the years in the past, they would talk about him, what they did out there at the IL. And I mean, you ran big outfit, what that camaraderie that them cowboys or buckaroos have amongst each other when they see each other. Hey, remember that time we did this and did that, and it's kind of like that goes back to Merv Takis in the Squaw Valley. It's mostly them. It's like, were them horses that bad? No, I don't think they were that bad. It's just the guys that were there. Yeah. It was Western to them because it would, how it explodes and everything.
I think a lot of that's young people like adventure, or they just don't know. I know growing up, it's not like we had rank horses, but we got in a lot of wrecks. But it was because we didn't know. And we was kids out in cow camp and didn't have anybody there the biggest part of the time, and so it was just ignorance that got us in trouble. And, and that's what it is on the big ranches too. I mean, that's a lot of it. But the better hands, we was talking about this earlier, but the better hands that come along, whether they're young or old, it doesn't matter. They didn't have as much trouble with them poorer newcomers, and a lot of people. I mean, I think you can kind of speak for yourself here, but here they are, 19, 20, 21 years old. They're out of school, maybe out of college, and they want the adventure. But they really don't know much. You know, they can ride a horse.
Yeah.
They know a little bit, but just like you were saying, you know, you didn't have a bedroll, you couldn't really shoe a horse, but you hired on.
Yeah.
You know? So, but, and that's, you know, even when I was running the big outfits, that's kind of who you got. You was lucky to get some ranch kid that kind of grew up around it and had some experience and could already rope and maybe ride a colt or something, but a lot of them, you know, they was there to learn and there for the adventure, and some of them was just there for the adventure and didn't even care to learn, but they didn't stick around too long.
Yeah.
I didn't have much patience for them, but. So anyway, the IL, what's some of the other outfits you?
Well, the IL, and then I went up into Fort Hall, Idaho. Ended up getting a job from there. I went to the ZX in Oregon, and then from the ZX that same summer I came down to Orvada, and I was just trying to think of that family that was there, McCurkiagas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked over there for a couple of weeks. They had a bunkhouse, but they had no outhouse. They had no running, no plumbing. They said just use the restroom in the house, and I was like, I don't want to go in their house and bother them. But anyway, their place was like this. There's no brush. There's nothing out there. You couldn't even go hide behind. So, yeah, I was just like, this ain't gonna work. I was driving like 50 miles to go take a bath, you know, in McDermott, and I said, well, I'm gonna roll up. So I rolled up, but it was fun being there just for that week and hanging out with Jacques McCurk and McCurkiaga and his, I think it was his son or nephew, but got to brand some horses and stuff. And then from there I came to Hawaii, and then I got a job at the YP with Nathan Kelly and on the wagon, and man, that was the best summer of my life.
Yeah.
I branded calves at the ZX.
Nathan run a good crew, huh?
Then branded calves at the YP. Yeah, I was a good crew. I mean, they were just ropey. Every day you rope, whether you wanted to or not. Burned my hand up lots, and you know, learned a little something. And you know, my friend Ira Walker, you know, he always asked me, you know, where did you learn to rope? I said, with you guys at YP, you know. I said, watching you guys rope, you know, they didn't throw fancy shots, you know. Nathan used to do a hula hand, but he didn't sit there and go like this, you know. Nathan would ride by and he'd just like that and just dally and go to the fire. And that was pretty cool, you know. I just like, wow. But Ramon, he would reach out there and rope them this way or that way or underhand or whatever, you know. He just ropey. But and then from there I went back to Fort Hall. I ended up at a ranch in Montana, the Cross Ranch, owned by Centennial Livestock. And then from there I came back this way, ended up at the 3 Dot in California. And I didn't stay at any ranch any given time, you know. I mean, 4 days here or 5 months there, you know. It was never years. I never spent years. But I ended up at the White Horse, and they were shutting down. And anyways, I didn't stay there very long. But it was fun. I got to hang out with Brett Lay and Tim Draper and oh shoot, I can't think of his name. Anyway, then I went to work in Arizona. Went to the Diamond A. Went to a wagon down there. That was fun. Those guys that's different. That's way different. You know, the flat assing and all like that, you know.
I bought some bulls off that Diamond A, so I was around there a few days.
So you got to see the country.
They raised Angus bulls.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had them Angus when I was there, but anyway, Chip Dixon, he that was his like 4th time being the cow boss over there.
Yeah.
And they just do things different, you know. And then like a lot of them guys that we were just talking about, them guys that you had hire on, you know, they call them wagon trash. You know, over there they just hire on for the wagon. They come out of Texas or New Mexico or Colorado or wherever, and they just want to be a cowboy. They didn't know nothing, you know. But it's still, you know, everybody has a story, and and it's funny watching some of them guys, you know, how they deal with situations and whatnot. And but they treated me really nice. I liked that ranch. It was good. Other than the branding, I didn't really care for. That's, you know, it's just work. Yeah, it's not fun like up here, you know.
They held them on the ground.
Yeah, yeah. You healed them. You healed them. They were happy if you caught one leg too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, what? It's just that, whatever. So it's all different. But from there I went. Let's see, Spanish Ranch. Worked for Jake Brown over there. Went to come back to the IL. When I came back about at the 25, I ended up helping Norbert and them guys at the 25. And then Jeff Glasscock, he was the boss there. Then he got the boss job at the IL. So later on, I went to the IL, and ended up at the Horseshoe in the TS, which was all the same outfit, And then from there, I went up here to Simplot and worked in the feedlot. And that was probably my longest ever holding a job as far as agriculture, 2 years. But yeah, shoot, going around all these outfits and being around. But I could go brand calves and do anything. 'Cause I have my own horses, have my own saddle horses, and that's almost what's required nowadays.
Yeah.
You don't have the cavvy anymore. They don't even have a cook. Don't have a hood. You don't have a chore boy. Yep. It's all changed. Yep. It's all changed. Yeah.
And that's where I really got to know you the most is when you was practically my neighbor here when you was at the feedlot.
Yeah.
We'd come out and talk about bits and stuff. But the first time I ever kind of acknowledged you was at that gathering in California.
The movie.
Yeah,
The Gathering.
Yeah. I don't know I don't remember crossing paths with you before that.
Yeah, California. When you were judging, that's only that I remember. That's where I first noticed. That's what I noticed you. And who's that? And I asked Norbert, who's that? And he said, that's Martin Black. He's from Bruno. And then you always hear Martin Black stories about. I can't remember that horse that run away with you without your bridles, your reins fell off or something. Anyway, I heard about
at the horse show.
Yeah, at the horse show. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of them stories we don't need to bring up.
Yeah, but anyway, I was just, you hear those Westies, that's what they,
Yeah.
Those things like that, and it's like, man, who is that? We got to put a face with a name, but the bit collecting and the nice gear, Ortega, hair ropes, silver conchos, anything that's good saddles. And I know that about that stuff. So I want to meet somebody like that. I want to talk to them. I want to pick their brain and learn more. And then along with it, maybe I could learn something about a horse. It's just being there and being part of that. Like I said, I don't know anything. I just come to find out I don't even care now. I'm just like too old. I'm too old to care. But I like the roping part. I really missed it. Like I said, I've been home and people have been inviting me to brand calves, and I went branding, and I got me a nice little blister for it, so that's all good, But I remembered I could rope. I was like, hey, I can rope. Still, it was fun. And then, like you were talking to your students this morning about people paying attention. Well, there was an old man at a branding and he wasn't paying attention. He had that spaghetti in his hand and I was like, what's he doing? And nobody was watching him. I was watching him because I'm holding the calf at the fire and I was thinking this is going to be bad. And sure enough, that calf come behind him and boy, his horse skedaddled out of there. And I was like, hey, the old man. And I tried to tell him, pop your bellies and throw it away. But he was coming right for me. Luckily, my horse side passed and I, pushed my leg into him and he just stepped right over and he went blowing by. I was like, whoa, that could have been interesting. Just things like that. Yeah.